In 2006, there was a movie that came out about that tragic event at Marshall University, where in 1970, the plane or the football team crashed, and 75 people lost their lives, including 37 players. It was a tragedy that resonated across the country. And in the wake of that event, the president at Marshall University considered suspending the football program altogether. It was just too hard to imagine going forward after such a terrible event. But eventually, the president hired Jack Lingle as the next head coach, along with Red Dawson, one of the only two surviving members from the previous coaching staff. And in the offseason, they faced multiple hurdles just trying to field a team for the next season, including getting permission to play freshmen, which was not allowed at the time. Well, there's a scene in the movie where the next season arrives after the wake of that horrible event. And the team is running out of the tunnel as fast as it can for the very first game. But Red Dawson, running alongside of the players, gets to the sideline and stops. He freezes. And he looks down at that white line, unsure of whether he can step on that field again. Because loss changes everything. And yesterday, after Good Friday, we stood on that line on the ground, unsure of whether we could move forward or not. That we were twisted up in knots, unable to comprehend how the light of the world went out. That we had been to Calvary. We had seen the shadow of the valley of death, and we had buried our hope next to Jesus. But on this morning, hope got up out of the ground because Mary Magdalene said, I have seen the Lord. That Mary understands how we feel. She got up this morning to go to the tomb only to be surprised that the stone had been rolled away. And she ran to tell the others, Peter and the beloved disciple, they have taken the Lord. She thought the grave had been robbed. So they all went running back to investigate. The beloved disciple looking into the tomb only to see the linen wrappings that had been around Jesus' body lying there. And Peter steps into the grave to see that linen cloth that had been placed on Jesus' head, rolled up neatly and sat to the side. Mary standing outside, crying in agony, until eventually she composes herself and looks in to see two angels who said, why are you crying? She turns around and she sees Jesus, only to mistake him for the gardener, saying, did you take him away? And then the gardener said, Mary's voice. And she realized it was him. And she ran to tell others, I have seen the Lord. Mary thought the grave had been robbed. It was a fair assumption, a problem during this day and time. In fact, archaeologists have studied what has been named the Tomb of the Shroud in Jerusalem, a first century grave that shows evidence of someone entering it illegally and looting it. No wonder Mary was crying out in agony. To think that the grave of a loved one had been desecrated. That even today, when we walk around cemeteries, we walk lightly around grave markers. They are sacred places. But the great irony, the surprise of Easter, is that Mary was right. The grave had been robbed. As it says in 1 Corinthians, death, where is your sting? Grave, where is your victory? And that is true of the grave and all of the other little deaths and smaller losses that we experience over the course of a lifetime. It is the loss of a dream or goal. It is the end of a friendship or relationship. It is the threat of change or the possibility of failure. It is a whole lot of Good Fridays waiting for Easter mornings. And like Mary, running to tell others we need and long for the gift of community. That Good Friday sent everyone running in all directions away from one another. But Easter calls everybody back together. And perhaps the church is meant for such things. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General warned of an epidemic of loneliness. That only 3 in 10 adults reported knowing their neighbor. 50% of adults said that they felt lonely, and all of that was before COVID. And technology remains a contributing factor. Loneliness is more than a feeling. It is a symptom of Good Friday. Easter, though, calls and invites everyone back together. And it is, as William Sloane Coffin writes, it's oftentimes said that the church is a crutch. Of course, it is a crutch. What makes us think we don't walk with a limp? That in the church we can find what a good friend has called courage friends. They are our friends that give us courage in the face of Good Friday until we can say with Mary, I too have seen the Lord. Years ago, I had a good friend diagnosed with a rare form of tongue cancer. She was in her early 20s. It was in advanced stage. And she would have to endure a terribly long surgery, followed by extensive radiation treatments. It was Good Friday. And then, 2 years to the day after she finished those radiation treatments, in 2011, she wrote a post that said, "Happy anniversary to me." But then she went on to write the longest list of thank yous I had ever seen. Because Easter brings people together. She thanked her family, those who prayed, those who brought food or sent blankets, those who compiled CDs or Netflix lists, those who texted or made posters, those who called or wrote emails, those who made her an honorary Texan because she spent so much time at MD Anderson, those who visited her, those who waited with her until the next appointment, those in her family of faith who remained present to her from 500 miles away, the staff at the hospital, the doctors, the technicians, the nurses, and the list just kept going. And then at the very end, she wrote, "You made me feel less alone." Community makes our celebrations bigger and our losses more manageable because they connect us to the light of Christ. Mary thought the grave had been robbed, and she was right. Whenever we stand at that line on the ground of Good Friday, overwhelmed and unsure whether we can move forward or not, we need to hear Mary say again, "I have seen the Lord." Amen.